Look, you want to be the number one property in your market? Follow these 5 tips and 2 bonuses starting right now. So, number one, and this is coming from a guy that's been literally number one in Gulf Shores for 6 bedrooms for 3 straight years. So, I have a tier 2 property in Gulf Shores that I get higher than beachfront property rates because I follow all of these things. Number one is best location. I have the absolute best location that nobody in the world can replicate as a tier 2 property in Gulf Shores. And there are 4 open lots in front of me. I literally own the property here. There's a driveway. There's a house next to us. I know the owner. They don't do short term rentals. And then there's a house next to that. I found that property for my friend and client Bill, and I co host for him. So there's 2 short term rentals. He's a 5 bedroom. I'm a 6 bedroom. Did $351,000 in my first year. Did $338,000 in my second year. Third year, which we're in right now, looks like I'm gonna end up right around 335 to 340, basically equivalent with last year. We're pretty much even Steven right now. How many tier 2 properties, regardless of the fucking size, do you know that are doing over $300,000 in revenue in the Gulf Shores market? You know one now, you didn't know any before. Same property, meaning same house, 12 houses down, no open lots in front of them, same builder. Interior design is much better from us. Amenities are better. Even though we both have pools, I've got outdoor games. I got a fire pit. I've got, an arcade game inside. I've got bikes, all that type of stuff. The other one just has a pool. It's managed by Harris Properties. I don't know what it's done the last 2 years, but the year I did 351, it did $182,000 in revenue. Now that's a property manager. That's not a self manager. But my point is location, location, location. You can't compromise on location. When I'm looking for a property, even before I start underwriting, when I'm on Zillow, which is my source of choice for the MLS, or a wholesaler sends me something, or Avery Carl, Tyler Kuhn, my realtor to Montana, Lauren sends me something. The first thing I'm looking at is location. And I literally, if I don't recognize the street, I click on the address, I pull it up on the map. And if it's not in a good location, I don't care how great the house is, the condo is, or the apartment complex, or the boutique motel, I move on. Number two, top views. And you said the first one was the best location. Number two is top views. You don't have to have the best views, but you need to have really, really good views because average just doesn't work, right? And what's going to happen is we go through all 5 of these bullet points and the 2 bonuses. If you can value stack all of these, this is where you absolutely build a super property. And that's what we're talking about here. All of my super properties are the number one in the market. My Banner Oak property is number one. My river property that I have in Montana is number one. My lake property is number one on the lake. And all that means is that I am dramatically outperforming the entire marketplace from a revenue generation standpoint. That is the definition of a super property. And that's what every one of you want. So it starts with the best location in the lake. Even if you're in a downtown area, you're in the best location next to the traffic source. I live south of Nashville. If I'm investing into Nashville, I want to see Broadway and I want my guests to be able to walk out and be there in 10 seconds. I don't want them to be a 5-minute Uber ride. That's not close enough. Everybody, and I was in the Smoky Mountains recently doing one of my 1-day boot camps on the East Coast. And people that are in Wares Valley hang their hat from a marketing standpoint on Dollywood. And they say that it's 15 minutes. And I get that on a Tuesday night at 11 p.m., it's a 15-minute drive. But at 8 a.m., any day of the week that ends in Y, it's a 30 to 40-minute drive. And you say 15 minutes, you think that attracts guests, and it does. But the problem is there's 4,000 Airbnbs between you and the entrance to Dollywood, and your guests are going to be pissed when you tell them it takes 15 minutes. So they leave at 8:45 when the park opens at 9, and then they don't get there till 9:30, and then they have to park a mile away, take the tram, and there's already long lines when they get there. So we got to think about this. The top best location and then top views. I would never, ever, ever buy a property in the Smokies or the mountains without views. Ever. I remember the first time I went to Banner Oak, North Carolina. First property that I saw was a great property, had an awesome game room, had a hot tub, had a little creek running through it. But literally, you walk out onto the back deck where the barbecue area and the hot tub was, and you're staring at the side of a fucking mountain. Out. You got to have views, specifically in the mountains. You got to have views of the water. You got to be lakefront. The worst property you can invest into based on views and location, honestly, is a tier 2 lake property at 90% of the lakes around the country. There are some that you don't have to be on the lake, but there's very, very few in the market. Number 3 is proximity. And you probably hear me talk a lot about this in my river property. So I've got amazing views. They're 10 out of 10. I've got amazing location, 10 out of 10, right on a river, looking up to the lake, the dam. There's a little beaver. that flies there. I can see past the lake to the mountains. Literally, it's the Canadian Rockies in Canada. This is just outside of Whitefish, Montana. But most importantly, I've got proximity. If you follow me, you've heard me say this. I can literally stand on my deck, firing up a brisket on the Traeger and throw my fly line into the water. That's how close it is. It's like 16 steps down these rock steps off the front of my porch to be able to be wading into the river and fly fishing at 6 a.m. in the morning at sunrise. So I have friends that own a property about 45 minutes away on the Flathead River, great river, and they're on the river, but they're 20 feet up above it, and there's no proximity to the river. Guests can't sup. That's a stand-up paddleboard. Guests can't kayak. Guests can't fish. Guests don't have access to it. So they really can't compete with what I have based on that proximity. So there's a difference between proximity and location. And I actually put more value into proximity than location. So a great analogy is you have a condo right across the street from the entrance to Dollywood and the Smokies, right? When you pull out of the condo, you got to turn right. And then you got to drive 10 miles down the highway and flip a U and come back. So you have a great location. You're directly across the street. You're like 100 yards, 50 yards across the highway from the entrance to Dollywood, but it's a 15-minute drive. You do not have proximity. So let that sink in for a little bit. Proximity is the access. That is just as important, if not more important in most cases, than location. Number 4 is amenities that others don't have. You know that if you go into a mountain market, just by default, you have to have a hot tub, right? So there's a reason, and I talked about this at my boot camps recently. 3 of the last 5 properties, these are all big properties. So I turned a 7.6 into a 12.9 at my Smith Lake, and I put in 2 hot tubs. A lot of people go and they buy the all-in-one arcade game for like $2,000, and they market that they have 400 arcade games. Well, what happens is if you take a picture of your game room and you have that one arcade game with 400 games, and then you take a picture of my game room and I have Shaq NBA Jam right next to NFL Blitz, next to Galaga, next to Miss Pac-Man, next to Frogger or Fast and Furious, and I have 5 or 6 games, I now have 5 times the marketability that you have. You think those 400 games are going to outmarket me, but they're not. It's the visual component. Instead of me spending $40,000 or $35 to $40,000 on a swim spa, I literally spent $13,000 on 2 hot tubs. Now I have more marketability. I have 2 properties in the OBX. That's the Outer Banks. 6 bedrooms, both beachfronts. One's in Duck, one's in South Corolla, about 2.5 miles north of Duck. And everything about them is amazing, and they're crushing. They're going to do, looks like over $900,000 combined in the first year for those 2 properties, which is a lot of fucking money for 2 properties. They both have 2 hot tubs. I literally kept the shitty hot tub at Ocean Crest, left it up on the balcony, and then bought a brand new one and put it right down by the pool. So that way I can market 2 hot tubs. Almost all of my properties have 2 coffee bars. I have the coffee bar that I created on Smith Lake in 2020 when all of you guys are starting to get into the business, and I branded it. And then now I have 2. Every master suite that I have, every single one, even my 1-bedroom condo, even my 2-bedroom condo, they have an additional, very small, low cost coffee bar. So I can market 2 coffee bars. When you have 1 and I have 2, I've created more value, whether it's hot tubs, whether it's paddle boards, whether it's video games. The thing that I love about turning the 7.6 bedroom into a 12.9 down at the lake is now we created another, really 2 more living spaces, like a living space with a fire pit and, a 75-inch or 65-inch TV and a fireplace. And then there's one on the main floor with another 65-inch and a fireplace. And then upstairs on the 3rd floor, there's a loft with a 65-inch and a fireplace. So now I have 3 no, there's one in the master suite too. I have 4 fireplaces in this house. I have 3 dedicated living areas for me to be able to market, for people to be able to spread out. Kids downstairs by the game room, grandparents upstairs, middle children, you're all on the main floor, whatever it is. And then the other thing, when you have a big property like that, so I sleep 38, 12 bedrooms, sleep 38, 0 bunk beds, 0 bunk beds, improve safety, trust, allegiance, and only like 5 to 10-year-old kids want to sleep in bunk beds. Teenagers don't want to be in bunk beds. Adults don't want to be in bunk beds. So another huge marketing quote. I see that as an amenity. Having USB and USB-C outlets on every single nightstand is a small amenity. Putting tampons and toothpaste and flossers and 2 extra toothbrushes in your bathrooms, extra amenities. Now you're value stacking these amenities. That's how you get to number 1 in the market. It's not just checking the box. Then you got to take photos of it and you got to put it in the front of your listing. One of the number 1 things that holds you guys back and keeps you from getting to number 1 in the marketplace is you have stuff in your house, you have amenities, you have plus ones, but you are not marketing them. You are not showcasing them to your potential guests. You have to showcase every single house. It's not good enough just to check the box anymore. And the last one is design for your ideal guest. There is no mystery here, folks. I am going after Wealthy Wendy. Even in that one bedroom, I think it's 683 square foot condo that I just purchased. It is in the shittiest condo building I've ever seen. Literally, the sides are falling off of it. The hardy board needs to be repaired. The outdoor area is in the parking lot with like that old wire furniture and 5-gallon Home Depot buckets with 4x4s and string lights and $200 charbroil grills. There's nothing nice about it. It's not updated inside either. But me and Bria are making a Mac Daddy 1-bedroom. But most importantly, if I show you my list, it's got the best location on the mountain. It's got top views. It's got the proximity. It's literally the closest unit to the number one chairlift on the entire mountain. And I paid $559 for it. So that's one of the bonuses. Bonus number one, you got to buy it right. Bonus number two is going to be the amenities that others don't have. So nobody in all of Whitefish, Montana has a geodome and also a barrel sauna. Nobody. Who do you think there's one property that has that? Mine, Lodge 93. Separation. There is no property that has 2 houses, a lake, a stream, 2 hot tubs, 2 fire pits. Should I keep going? That is leverage, folks. I'm creating separation between me and everybody else in the market. That's how I get to number one. Last, when you design for an ideal guest, you need to literally take your ideal guest. And what I want you to do is I want you to get a picture. So literally you have a picture of the person, you name it, then you go in and you do a description. I want the likes. I want to know where they live. I want to know what they drive. I want to know what they drink. Just think about those things, right? So this is why we call it a buyer persona. It's a fictional representation of your ideal buyer. There you go, folks. That's why I've got a picture of him or her. Mine's Wealthy Wendy. So I've got a picture of Wealthy Wendy. I give her name, Wealthy Wendy. I want to know what she likes. I want to know where she lives. I want to know what she drives. I want to know what she drinks. Big difference if Wealthy Wendy is a whiskey drinker versus a wine drinker. Big difference if she likes tennis versus golf. Big difference if she drives a Range Rover or if she drives a Toyota. So all of those things go into how I'm going to amenityize. If that's not in the Webster's dictionary, we need to get it in there. So that's the amenities that I'm going to put in, how many of them. And one of the most important things is you can take a condo, a 1 or 2 bedroom, and turn it into a super property if you target Wealthy Wendy. It doesn't have to be a major expensive super property. Don't share that with all your friends. Keep that just between you and me. If you do those things, you're going to be able to get to number one in the market. So start with Wealthy Wendy. That's bonus number 3. So I actually gave you 8 components that I value stack, every one of them. I don't buy a property unless I'm going to be able to do all of this. All of these things, folks, lead to the marketability. That is the number one thing that I'm looking at when I look at a property. When I set foot on that property, I'm thinking about, man, what's my first image going to be on Airbnb? What's my first Facebook ad going to look like from a creative standpoint? What's the first image that I'm going to put into that buy, sell, trade group? If you can't wrap your head around that, just turn around and leave. It's that simple. And 99.9% of the time, it starts outside. Thanks for joining me on this episode of SDR Unfiltered. Make sure you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and wherever you're listening to this on your favorite podcast station. I'll see you guys on the next episode. Happy hosting, everybody.